Accessing archival recording subject liminal space begin recording.
I've seen a lot of people talk online about liminal spaces. They give examples, definitions. They explain the feeling of being in a liminal space, what it's like, and all of this, but I've yet to see someone actually give their own experience in one. I have an experience in liminal space that is hard to explain, hard to understand. It almost feels like it was a supernatural event, but I know that's impossible. A couple years back, I was visiting some family in a hospital. They were first-time parents. They were pregnant with twins, and there were some complications, so they basically stayed at the hospital for like a week. And me and my wife and the rest of my family stayed with them the entire time. They were on the third floor. Me, my wife, and the rest of us waited on the second floor in the lobby. And up on the fifth floor, at the top of the hospital, at this maternity wing, there was a break room where we can get free coffee whenever we wanted. They had a couple snacks too. It was an open break room. And one night, at around 2, 3 in the morning, I was still wide awake, full of anxiety, watching my phone for any sort of update or news for if they're okay, and I decided, I could go for a free cup of coffee. So I went to the elevator, went from the second floor up to the fourth floor. When I exited the elevator, I was greeted by the welcome desk. They were a couple friendly nurses there at the front desk, and we politely waved at each other but didn't say anything because it was very late and we didn't want to make any noise to wake up anybody who was trying to rest. Now, I visited this break room many times during this stay, so I knew exactly where it was. I just turned the corner, it was a couple doors down, and there would be the break room. It was even plainly marked on the window where the break room was. And yet, for some peculiar reason that to this day I don't understand how this happened, when I turned the corner from that welcome desk and I began walking down that hallway, the break room wasn't there. Where the door used to be was simply a bare wall now. There were other doors still, but the one for the break room somehow just wasn't there. To make things even stranger, as I turned the corner to begin walking down this hall, the subtle sounds of the nurses at the front clicking away at the keyboards had vanished. In fact, all sound from the hospital had vanished as I began walking down this hall. I heard no beeps for the machines. I heard no other footsteps walking around. All I could hear was the buzz of the lights overhead. Now, this floor, this entire hospital, honestly, was a simple circular path. I turn right. No, sorry, my mistake. I turn left to walk down the hall. It's a singular location. There was no right turns, only lefts. And I thought, well, maybe I was mistaken. Maybe the break room is on the other end of the hallway. So I turned the corner. Still no break room. Turned another corner. Still no break room. I turned the final corner, which would have led me back to the front desk and the elevator. And it led me back to the front desk, but no nurses there at the front desk anymore. And stranger still, no more elevator. Where the elevator was, which had its own little seating area and lobby, was empty. The seating area was still there. There were the chairs, the table, but no more elevator. Again, I cannot explain how this happened. I was not sleep deprived. I had slept during the day. I was fully awake and conscious, but In a way, I was lost in a place that is, by its nature, impossible to be lost in. So I continued to circle around. I walked those hallways again and again and again, and still I heard no other person. I heard no beeps of the machines monitoring patients. I heard no clack of keyboards at the front. Just my own footsteps and the lights above, and I do not know how this happened. I wandered those hallways for what felt like hours. I turned and I turned and I turned the same looping hallway again and again and again. Until just as soon as it started, it ended. I turned the corner, I was back at the front desk, and there were the kind nurses who smiled and waved at me again. So I began my journey one more time, turned the corner again. There finally was the break room. I must have missed it somehow. That's the only thing that makes sense. And the rest, despite me being wide awake, late night has a way of messing with your mind. But I found the break room. I got my coffee. And I went straight back to the elevator. I did not dare try and loop the hallways one more time, out of concern that I may be lost once again in those hallways. Somehow, despite all of it, I wasn't afraid. I could not for the life of me explain to you how this is possible, but the only thing I can say is I just knew I would be okay. Call it intuition, call it faith in God, call it whatever you want, but I knew I would be free from that labyrinth. And free I was. And keep in mind, this all happened before liminal space became the trending thing. I experienced it before everyone even really comprehended what it was. I just didn't have a word for it until now. I've visited that hospital again. Been to that same exact floor again. It never happened. At least not there. I've experienced something similar in other places, but never like that. Ever again. There are things I have discovered in this reality that we call home that do not follow the same rules that we believe to be truth. So all I have to say about that is, I guess, be careful turning corners in places that seem familiar. Yeah, never quite know what may be around that corner, if you're still in the same hallway that you thought you once were.